Dr. Holmes concludes this by saying, there is then no limitation outside of our own ignorance. Now, ignorance does not mean you're stupid. It just means you're ignoring something. Okay. There is then no limitation outside of our own ignorance, and since we can all conceive of a greater good than we have so far experienced, we all have the ability to transcend previous experience and rise triumphant above them. We shall never triumph over them while we persist in going through the old mental reaction. The minute the prodigal son, who took all of his inheritance and went out and blew it, okay, he had a good time. Okay, and all of a sudden, he wound up with zero, nothing, eating with swine. And he decides out of his last effort that what he maybe should do is go back to his father's house. And so he returns, and as he's going toward the house, he looks up the road, and his father is running toward him with open arms. And when he embraced him, he said to him, all that you've lost, I now return to you. See, that's principle, isn't it? That's principle. See, then we deplete ourselves by way of negative thinking, deplete ourselves by pessimism, deplete ourselves by anxiety and fear and doubt and finding something to hate and something to put down out here instead of finding something within to love. All of a sudden we discover that at any moment we can do what? Return. I return. That's why I asked Jill to sing that, to have us sing that morning. Because at any moment of your life you can return to your source, which is within you. And you can find completion, and you can find love, and you can find answers that you have never found before. You can find a beauty that you've known before. You can find a song worth singing and sing it. We had a great loss this week in the history of our church here. From the very beginning of our center, I have been blessed by all the dedicated men and women who've come forth and volunteered their time and their talent and have supported me and supported this church and supported its growth and the idea and the dream we had. You know, they weren't afraid to live the dream when we were down at the YMCA with 6 people and thought about what we're going to build here. And over the past 35 years, we have all celebrated. And every time you come here, you know, many people come here and you come and you spend an hour and you say thank you and leave, and you don't realize the number of men and women and dedication and hours that goes in just to prepare for Sunday morning, just to prepare for the ongoingness of what we do. And one of the 2 early people in this was Lynn Nichols and her dear husband, Phil. And Phil, if you remember, how many remember Phil and Lynn? Okay, Phil and Lynn, where Phil was, everybody thought we were brothers. He had red curly hair and we looked a whole lot alike. And Lynn was one of my first board members. She was a wonderful teacher at Logan High School. And they moved up to Grass Valley. Phil came down about 3 weeks ago and we spent the day together. And the whole day we were together, he was doing nothing but thanking me and this church for being part of his life and to giving him the strength to move forward and to face what he was facing 3 weeks ago. Phil made transition last Friday evening. And anyhow, we talked shortly before he passed. And again, in our conversation over the phone, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Tri-City Church. Thank you to all the dear people. Thank you from what I've learned. He was supposed to leave us 6-7 years ago. Okay. And he added that time period. Why? Because he just refused the verdict. He allowed himself to get higher than the verdict. He allowed himself. How many of you have done that? How many have received a verdict and you said, wait a minute, I'm not accepting this verdict. I choose to go higher. Now, isn't that what we're talking about this morning? That at any moment in your life you can go higher than where you were, no matter how high it used to be. No matter how loving it used to be, there's that much more to embody. I love what Kennedy Schultz says here in You're Too Smart to Be Stupid. We can get too used to being confronted with our misery and endorsed for our suffering. This is a polite thing to do and an entirely human thing to desire, but dynamic healing must eclipse dainty, eloquent, and comforting words. Too many people have been killed with kindness. Kennedy he didn't hesitate about getting to the point. One of my favorite stories, somebody came in to see Kennedy once and was going on and on about a relationship that was ended, and they were just tearing him up, and they were wah, 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 and they can't understand why she left him, and blah, blah, blah. And finally Kennedy said, okay, now listen to me very carefully. And said, what's that? He said, I'm going to explain to you in a very brief period of time why she left you. And he said, what's that? He said, she doesn't like you anymore. Get over it. How many know you would have saved yourself a whole lot of time somewhere in the past if you just been that honest with you? Oh, okay. Okay. See, we don't want to run around trying to make what isn't right for us right for us. We don't want to accept anything and try to. Why not allow ourselves the serendipity experience of, in consciousness, I now accept everything that is needed. Now, if it's your physical health, know that your consciousness is directing every cell of your body. Every fiber of your being is directed by consciousness, every experience. But our body is more than what we're walking around in. Our body's our whole world. All of you are here this morning, but are you out there? Or are you in my mind? And am I up here or am I in your mind this morning? You see, where do I exist in you in this lesson this morning? In you. Not up here, but in you. And everybody here has a different interpretation of what I'm teaching this morning, because I'm not teaching anybody. I'm not telling anybody what to think. All I'm doing is showing you how. So however you interpret it, this is the beautiful thing about religious science, is when you come and hear this, everybody in the room gets a different lesson. Because all we're dealing with is principle and how to apply it. What you do with it is your business. It's not mine. Okay? But the challenge I have for you this morning, as Dr. Schultz, as Dr. Holmes is doing, is do what? Pay attention to your own challenge. And know that if it's there and you know it's a challenge, then it's your opportunity to do what? Turn calamity into opportunity. Turn confusion into clarity. Turn anything that's less than beautiful into the beautiful. Why? Because we have the power to do it. As long as we do what? Stop blaming what's happening to us on something outside of us. Everybody point out here. Say, if I think my problems are coming from out here, I'm going to look out here for the answer. You see why people don't find their answers? They're looking in the wrong place.